Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here. In today's video, we'll be doing a review and how to play video on Marvel Dice Throne, the board game, so let's get into it. Alright, so now that we've got the game out, let's walk you through the basics on how to play the game. I won't go into every single detail of each character and all of their abilities, but more of a general breakdown on how you play so you have a better idea on how the game works, and then I'll jump into my review after that. So a couple things to start off the game. You want to lay out each player's player board on the table. Set out their ability cards to the side. Put the different tokens that each character has off to the side where it's easy to reach. You'll set each player's combat point style to 2. Each player's health tracker to 50. Shuffle the deck for each character, and then each player will draw 4 cards to start the game. Now to decide who goes first, each player will roll a die and see who gets the highest roll. So Spider-Man in this case got a 1, Scarlet Witch got a 5, so Scarlet Witch would be the first player. Now each turn is broken down into different phases. So there's the upkeep phase, income phase, a main phase 1, a roll phase, main phase 2, and then a discard phase. So as the first player, you'll actually skip the upkeep and income phase on the very first turn. After that, both players will go through the upkeep phase and the income phase. So to start off, you'll be in the main phase on the first turn of the game. And so in this case, the player has the option to play different cards that have this main phase symbol on it, the blue M symbol. And so how you do that, you can spend combat points to play one of these cards, if I choose to. So in this case, this one is worth 2 points. So I could bring the combat points down to 0 and then play this upgrade card. This now just enhanced my defense ability, making it more powerful. When it comes to upgrading, some abilities will have a level 2 ability and a level 3 ability, but one thing to note is that you do not have to first have played a level 2 ability to play the level 3 ability. You'll just simply need to play the cost listed on the card. Also, if you've played a level 2 and then want to upgrade to a level 3, instead of playing the entire amount listed on the level 3 card, you'll do the difference between the level 2 and the level 3. So it's a little bit easier to upgrade that way. So at this point, I'm out of combat points. I didn't have any cards worth 0 combat points to play. Another option I could do is I could sell cards at this time, which means I could discard a card and then earn 1 combat point for each card I did that for. I'm not going to do that at this point, so I'll move on to the roll phase. So how the roll phase works is that as the active player, you have the ability to attack the opponent. And so what you'll do is you'll roll all 5 die, and then you'll try and make different combinations to activate an ability on your board. Now in this case, I already have the Darkhold ability activated, as I have 2 of those symbols, but I could try for something else as well. And so again, how the roll phase works is you have 3 rolls to try and get the symbols that you need. So let's say I was trying to get the Hex Bolt ability and deal the most amount with that. I could select these 3 die that don't have that symbol and re-roll them. Oh, and I actually did, so awesome. So I got the most powerful version of the Hex Bolt right now. I've only done 2 rolls. So what I would do at this point is declare that that's the ability I'm going to use. So at this time, as a defender, I could potentially play a card that had the roll symbol here, or the red exclamation point, which is an instant that can happen at any time, to potentially foil the other player's plan. Unfortunately, I don't have any cards to do that, so it would now move to the defense phase. And now Spider-Man has 2 options for the defense phase that I could choose from. So I could go with the counter punch here and potentially deal extra damage back to the opponent, or I could use my Spider Sense and potentially block some of the incoming damage. So let's say, for example, I choose to do the counter punch this time. I would roll 3 die, and then for each the whip symbol, I would deal 1 unblockable damage. So let's roll 3 die as Spider-Man. I actually got 3 of them, so that would deal 3 damage back to Scarlet Witch here. And now Scarlet Witch's main ability here that I just activated deals 8 blockable damage to Spider-Man. Now there's different types of damage, like you might have heard just now. There's unblockable and there's blockable. So some defense abilities give you the ability to block incoming damage. However, if the damage was listed as unblockable, it would go through on your health points no matter what. Like Spider-Man's 3 unblockable damage in this case. So in this case, the Scarlet Witch would go down to 47 health. And then Spider-Man would lose 8 health and go down to 42. At this point, the roll phase is ended and you would have a second main phase as Scarlet Witch, which again means that I could sell cards or discard them for 1 combat point each. I could play other main phase cards if I had them, or I could just simply do nothing and move on to the discard phase. So at the point of the discard phase, if you have more than 6 cards, you need to discard down to 6 in total. And when you do this, it's kind of like selling the card still. You'll still earn a combat point for every card that you discard in this way. In this case, I don't have any to do, so it would move on to Spider-Man's turn. Now since Spider-Man is the second player in this case, I will have the upkeep phase, so if Spider-Man had any type of status effects on him, those would now activate at this time if they happen during the upkeep phase. Since I don't have any status effects, this means we'll move on to the income phase, which will gain 1 combat point and draw 1 card. So I will move up to 3 combat points, and then I'll draw another card to my hand. So again, at this time, I could play any of the main phase cards or any instant cards, but not any roll phase cards at this time. There's nothing I want to play, so we'll move on to the roll phase. So again, Spider-Man will roll all 5 die, and I have 3 opportunities to re-roll to try and get the symbols I want to activate an ability on Spider-Man's card here. So it looks like at this time I already have Spider Reflexes, so I could activate that ability. One thing to note, if I activate this ability and then the Scarlet Witch player did something to affect my die, to change it to something else where I no longer had this ability based on the dice that I have, I could then choose to activate a different ability based on the dice that I have, or move on with my other re-rolls. So again, you have your first roll and then 2 more re-rolls after that in total for 3 rolls during the roll phase. Again, after the ability is selected, the other player has the opportunity to do their defense roll. Players could choose to play cards that have the roll phase symbol, and then again they'll calculate the end damage and results after the combat. I would then have another main phase where I could play cards that have the main phase symbol on them, and then it would go through to the discard phase. And again, play will go back and forth between players until one of them reaches 0 health. And then the other player will be the winner at that point. Another thing to definitely check out is that each player card has rules clarifications listed right on the card. So it talks about the most common issues you might have or concerns or questions on different abilities for a character. And so this is a great resource on the back of your ability card explaining more details on how your ability works. Same thing with the front side of the ability card. It breaks down each ability in more detail. Another quick rule to understand is the stack limit. And so different abilities have the tokens associated with them. And what stack limit means is that you can only have up to that number on a specific character. So you couldn't hold more than 1 combo token at the same time for your character. Now, like I said, this is really just glossing over the rules. I think you have enough now to know how to play the game. And if it looks like it'll be something you enjoy, but if you have additional questions on rules, definitely consult the rule book. But again, that's really the basics on how you play. So now that you have a better idea on how the game works, let's jump into my review. Well, now that you have a better idea on how the game works, how do I actually feel about it? So this was my first experience playing a dice throne game. There's a lot of different versions and variants in the series, and this one is focused on some classic Marvel characters. And after playing it, I really enjoyed it. Kind of feels like a combination of Yahtzee, a deck builder, and Magic the Gathering. Well, you'll play as a specific character. In this case, you can choose between Spider-Man Miles Morales, Loki, Thor, and Scarlet Witch. And so each character really has their own unique feel to them, but you'll have a set of dice that you'll roll on your turn, and this will activate different abilities on your character's board. You also have a deck of cards that you can use to gain power by discarding them, use specific abilities from the card, and even power up your abilities on your character board. And so that's kind of where the deck building element feels like it comes in, where you can discard cards to boost your powers, and then use that power to buy upgrades for your character, or to unleash cards that will either boost your character's ability, sabotage others, help you draw cards, and much more. And then it turns into almost like a Yahtzee feel, where you're rolling the die. You could re-roll the die up to 3 times and try and make the best combination, but then it also feels like Magic the Gathering because you're trying to defeat the other opponent, bring their health down to 0, and so you'll go back and forth between the different phases and players' turns, attacking and defending each round. Now, I really did like the fact that each character had a really different feel to them, and kind of kind of have their own unique strategies and personality almost for each character. So for example, Spider-Man will use abilities to slow down characters with web, use invisibility to enhance his defense, and unleash devastating combos to do additional damage each turn. Loki will use his trickery and bags of tricks to hinder opponents, locking different abilities, and often will lead to you having useless turns against him. Thor will throw his hammer back and forth at opponents, doing extra damage and powering himself up. And Scarlet Witch really focuses around status effects and either boosting her own abilities or hindering the other player. And so again, each one kind of has their own strategy, but I did feel like the game was really balanced between all the characters, where it didn't really matter which one you chose or who you went against. It was pretty close every single time. Certainly it's simple to learn the game and play, but I think you'll really develop your strategy over time the more times you play the game, as you'll get the hang of each character and their strengths and their weaknesses and how to best utilize their abilities. I think the game again does have a really high replay value because you can mix and match which players you're playing against, who you choose each time, how you want to power up the character, how the cards come out, and much more. On top of that, you can combine this with the other Marvel Dice Throne expansions to get even more replay value out of the game, or this can also be combined with any of the Dice Throne expansions, so you can have some epic battles between all kinds of characters, not just Marvel characters. Certainly, I think if you're a Marvel fan, you'll enjoy this game even more. It's great as a 2-player game, but you can play with more players as well, and there's additional rules that go into that version of the game, and it's still a lot of fun. But if you like dice rolling, if you like games where you're battling it out to be the last player standing, I would definitely recommend checking out Marvel Dice Throne. It's a lot of fun. It has a great replay value, and I highly recommend it. And if you'd like to pick up a copy of this game, there'll be a link in the description below where you can do so. And if you like this video, be sure to smash that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, check out one of our other videos here. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.